A long, long time ago, a future High King of Ireland would be raised whilst only a young boy for a short time by a she-wolf in her caves in the west of Ireland. This future High King is of course Cormac Mac Airt, the most famous in all of Irish mythology and folklore. Also, he would have a daughter who would become embroiled in the most famous love story this island has ever told. But that's for another day. Whilst the exact dates of his reign remain debatable, his influence and legacy still lives on till this day. For over 40 years, Cormac Mac Airt ruled from the Hill of Tara. Under his wise and just leadership, Tara flourished, becoming a beacon of prosperity and culture. Cormac's enduring impact can be witnessed in the magnificent monuments he constructed at the Hill of Tara. The banqueting hall, Cormac's house and Granules enclosure, named after his daughter, testify to his vision and architectural prowess. Cormac Mac Airt was well known for his generous, authentic and wise decision making as High King of Ireland. He became renowned throughout the land as a paragon of justice and leadership. During Cormac's reign, Ireland witnessed the legendary exploits of Fionn McCool and the captivating stories from the Fenian cycle, featuring Fionn and his valiant companions. Beyond his domestic achievements, Cormac Mac Airt was known for his diplomatic finesse. He fostered alliances and negotiated with other rulers, solidifying his position as a respected figure in the wider Celtic world. As the years passed under Cormac's enlightened rule, Ireland experienced unprecedented progress. Arts, literature and learning flourished, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural fabric of this land. And this is something that has been wiped away for the most part from our consciousness, and we've been disconnected from this very truth. Because this person was most likely authentic and real, not just mythical. Cormac's father was named Airt and was also High King, and he was the son of Conn of the 100 Battles. His mother Achtan hailed from Connacht and was a daughter of Ulch Acha, a skilled smith or druid. Now this is fascinating. He wasn't just the grandson of Conn of the 100 Battles, he was a grandson of a druid. According to the saga, the Battle of Moy Mocrama, apologies for the pronunciation there, it's very difficult to find the proper pronunciation for that battle. Fate intervened the night before the battle. According to a prophecy, a great dignitary would emerge from Ulch's lineage. In the act of hospitality, Ulch offered his daughter to Airt for the night, and it was from this union that Cormac was born. The destined future king was conceived. Cormac's father, unfortunately, Airt, was killed in that battle by the exiled nephew Lugad, who had from his exile brought back Picts and Britons to aid him in his battle for Ireland. So this battle was absolutely humongous, because this would have shown the Celtic world fighting for domination over other lands in the Celtic world. When Cormac had been born, the druid smith Ulch Acha put 5 protective bands upon him against slaying, drowning, fire, sorcery, wolves, against every evil. So Cormac was blessed by his grandfather the druid, and it would have protected him from a lot of evils and a lot of ways of being killed, but not from everything. This is almost like the Achilles myth. From infancy, Cormac's life took a very unexpected turn. He was carried off for a brief spell by a she-wolf and raised with her cubs in her caves in the west of Ireland, located in County Sligo. However, after some time, fate intervened again, and Cormac was retrieved when a hunter discovered him and returned him to his mother Achtan. But of course, this period of his life left an indelible mark on his consciousness and on him as a person. Cormac, later on in his teens, began working as a herd boy close to Tara, as he was not recognised. His uncle, Lugad, had taken over the kingship. One morning, some sheep broke into the Queen's garden and began eating her vegetables. All hell broke loose. The Queen went mental, the King went mental, and was confiscating the sheep. This was the widow's livelihood, and Cormac attended the court of Lugad, the High King of Ireland. His uncle, who Lugad didn't recognise Cormac knew his uncle. Cormac proposed a fair resolution, suggesting that one shearing of the sheep should compensate for the eating of the vegetables. because the vegetables would grow back and so would the sheep's wool. And there you would have payment for the vegetables that were already eaten, and the widow wouldn't lose her livelihood, and the vegetables would grow back anyway. And the payment was made for the vegetables. Everybody in the court thought this was an amazing suggestion and very wise from such a young boy. But there's one rule of power. Do not outshine the master, no matter how bad the master is. So Cormac had to leave because he felt that, and he was advised that he should leave because he could be killed by his uncle, because this young guy had won the court. But the great news is eventually Cormac did return and did claim and ascended to the high throne of Ireland, because Lugad did die eventually. Another usurper stepped in the place of Lugad. Cormac sought help from a person called Tyke, and they went and they claimed the throne, and Cormac finally got the high kingship, something that was destined for him and was a long journey for him to retrieve it. So Cormac did settle down and married Eithne. He also married a second wife named Ciarnat. Out of jealousy, Eithne forced Ciarnat to grind grain daily, but Cormac alleviated her burden by building a watermill. Cormac had many sons and also had some daughters called Grania and Alba. In the famous tale The Pursuit of Diarmid and Grania, Grania was initially betrothed to Fionn McCool, of all people. Imagine, this is the time of Fionn McCool. This is the time of the Fenian cycle. This is when Cormac was High King. So Cormac would have known Fionn McCool. Fionn McCool was old by this point. Cormac offered Grania to him, but the reality was Grania fell in love with Diarmid, one of Fionn's men, because Fionn was very old. He was actually older than Cormac. But you know what? I'm going to come back to this at another time. That's why you should follow. That's why you should subscribe, because I'm going to be talking about this specific story at another point. Cormac's reign was filled with battles and conquests, as recorded in the Irish annals. He fought against Ulster, Connacht, Munster, and even in the land that we now know as Britain. Despite being remembered as a wise ruler, one incident does portray him in a less favourable light. After a plague struck his herds, Cormac found himself without provisions and sought payment from Munster. However, his actions led to serious conflict, and he was eventually driven out of Munster. In his time, Cormac re-established the high kingship to such magnificence that he became the Shanaquis, poets, the scribes' favourite and most loved High King of Ireland. He rebuilt Catara into great halls for his soldiers and for the banquets. Evidence shows that the foundations of the Great Hall had 14 doorways in it. This was Cormac's doing. And even to this day, when you go to Tara, which I have done, you can see Cormac's house, Grania's enclosure. This is all fingerprints of Cormac's work. Cormac did produce great works of literature and annals. One of them is called Psalter of Tara, because it still doesn't exist to this day, but there's been so many references to it in the chronicles and annals of Ireland, and so many Shanaquis and poets have talked about this book. It was a very rich mine of very ancient, historic, and genealogical information, and that it was regarded as the greatest and most reliable authority of the very early days. This is from The Story of the Irish Race by Seamus McManus. Unfortunately, every great reign comes to an end, and after 40 years, Cormac choked to death on a salmon bone. Remember when we talked about the times that his grandfather, the Druid, blessed him? That wasn't included in it, almost like the Achilles heel. And to the end of his life, it was his way to have wolves about him. For he knew their speech, and they his, and they were friendly and tame with him and his folk, since they were foster brothers together in the wild wood. Is the source the high deeds of Finn and other bardic romances of ancient Ireland. You see, we're coming back full circle here, because later in his life, Cormac was noted to have wolves circling him and spending time with him, because this man, almost like the Fisher King myth, brought prosperity and flourishment, abundance to the land under his good reign, because the High Kingship of Ireland was very much a ceremonial and sacramental part of our heritage and culture and tradition, and it brought prosperity. When there was a bad king, there was bad leaders, it brings bad times, as we know today. If I were to say to you, a future High King of Ireland was raised by a she-wolf, would you believe me? Oh yes.